to be here. And we're going to spend the next hour or so talking about identifying the right investors for you and the raise, and how you can leverage both Flowlie and Forecastr to help you on the track to be prepared for fundraising. With that being said, I'll do a quick intro. My name is Vlad, co-founder and CEO of Flowlie Technologies, where we built effectively a system, an operating system to help you navigate the fundraising process more efficiently. My career has been spent previously in the private markets, primarily as an investor across several VC firms, our multifamily office group, investing anywhere from pre-seed all the way to Series B across North America, Europe, and Latam. And I'm joined today by Tom.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. I joined Forecastr 6 months ago. I'm on the partnerships team. Previously, I was at Carta, which is the cap table management platform. I was very early there as the 12th employee, was there through 1,000 people. And so I've experienced the rocket ship growth of building a unicorn. And I'm really excited to be at Forecastr, because I think Forecastr has potential to be, has the same kind of outcome. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Forecastr, we take your big, hairy, nasty financial model that's in a spreadsheet and we put it in a web app. And then it makes it much more manageable in terms of sharing with investors, sharing with your board, doing scenario planning. And then we have some cool AI features that are going to be dropping in the next few quarters too. So thrilled to be here and looking forward to learning more about Flowlie.
Amazing. Would be really curious to hear more about the new AI features coming to Forecastr as well. Maybe we're going to get the chance to discuss about it. And I guess, let's do a quick, plug on Forecastr. So, want to give us a little bit more information about what you guys doing?
Sure. Yeah. The quick plug on Forecastr is I was a founder, and I remember building my financial model in a spreadsheet, and I'm trying to come up with, a 3 to 5 year financial projection, and what does my hiring plan look like, and what does my revenue look like, and what are my customer acquisition channels, and it's just getting more complicated, and all the formulas are getting convoluted, and so the founders of Forecastr were thinking there's got to be a better way. What if we put that in a web app and we make it easier to share with potential partners across your team, easier to share with potential investors. And then you have beautiful dashboards that show you, how am I doing from a cash perspective? How am I doing from a revenue perspective? And then make it really easy to modify in terms of, what if I want to change my hiring plan for 2026? What if I want to hire, a few additional engineers earlier in the year versus later in the year? And just having real-time feedback on, how does that impact my business today? And then it's super helpful for fundraising too, because it's a one-click sharing with potential investors. And then later we'll talk about some of the AI tooling that we're building, where we're doing LLM integrations, where you can actually have chat conversations with the model to say, what's my cash position as of this date? Like what are my leading revenue acquisition channels, as of the second half of 2026? And then getting to a point where you can actually build out your model through chat and say, we'll hire that additional engineer second half 2026. And we're just super excited about taking Forecastr to the next level. So I would say if you're in a situation where you have a financial model in Excel and it's getting out of hand, and you could use some help on making it more efficient and pulling it into a web app, drop a note in the chat, and Becca will follow up, and we'd love to have a deeper conversation about your situation and see where we can be helpful.
Fantastic. Really, really exciting. And it's been great to see the journey of Forecastr over the last few years and how you grew. So with that, on fundraising, one-on-one specifically around identifying the right investors, what are we going to focus on today? So we're going to focus on rapid fundamentals on fundraising. So we're going to go over some of the basic building blocks on raising capital. We're going to then do a quick demo of the Flowlie platform and our also new AI agent that we've launched over the last few weeks, and also answer any questions you may have around fundraising. So the goal of this is to actually be able to build a target list, find interest, and make progress towards your fundraising goal. So if you want to follow along, feel free to. You'll also have this recording afterwards. So as Tom was mentioning earlier, a lot of the raise process is around understanding, how much capital do you actually need? But I would argue there's a second layer to it, which is where do you get that capital? And a lot of people are navigating first to venture capital because it's sexy. It breeds the first page of TechCrunch, and everybody reads those articles, and everybody wants to be on that front page of TechCrunch. But the reality is that there's been a lot of other sources of capital that you're able to tap into. And what we've seen more recently, there's been a wave of debt financing being used across multiple parts of the venture ecosystem, from as early as seed and definitely all the way to growth, anywhere from traditional bank loans and SBA loans to venture debt. And also alternatives such as revenue-based financing, where if you're actually generating revenue, you're able to get some of that revenue upfront for your business to be able to invest in growth, and then you'll be able to then send the additional revenue in the future towards the lender. Grants, also seeing quite a recent surge in people actually leveraging grants for their fundraising process. But last but not least, revenue. And I understand that everything we're going to discuss today doesn't matter as long as there's not a clear path towards leveraging your company to generate significant revenue. So with that being said, quick question I would ask myself before going to market and venture fundraising. I would ask 4 questions about myself as a business and myself as a founder. On the business specifically, I would make very clear that you have an opportunity to get to about 100 million of revenue over the next 8 to 10 years, because those are constraints that the market will be putting on you. And then what I mean by that, I'm talking about venture funds that are investing in your particular company would require you to be able to get to an exit of that level for them to make money, because a lot of their portfolio will go bankrupt because a lot of companies do fail. So understanding your financials really well and understanding your business model, is it scalable enough to be able to get that type of revenue over that course of time, is really, really important. And assuming you answered yes to all those things, I would ask myself 4 questions about yourself as a founder, which is willingness to give up control and ownership. You're going to be owning less and less of your own company and have less and less of a decision-making authority over that as you have more board members and more investors involved. You'll be able to navigate this quite stressful situation over the next 8 to 10 years, meaning you're willing to take on that journey for that period of time. But at the same time, you have the willingness to exit, meaning you're not planning to run a lifestyle business. And this is really the duality on timing of founders who are committing for a period of time, up to 10 years, but also not planning to run a lifestyle business that they'll be able to run in perpetuity. So with that being said, assuming you're answering yes to all those 8, I would go into the fundraising stages and dilution. Here, I'm also curious to hear from Tom of what they're seeing in the data around the customers of Forecastr. What we're seeing right now is, overall, let's say averages, is what we're having on the screen. We're seeing kind of 4 distinct early stage rounds that have very specific amounts that are being raised and different valuations and dilution. Not necessarily worth going over all of them, but what I'll share is that what we're seeing in terms of the participation, very heavy on angels and family offices in the angels and the pre-seed side, and still seeing participation on those angels and family offices all the way to A, and pre-seed being an area where fewer and fewer, pure VCs are investing, and the bar for that has definitely been increasing over the last few years. So passing it over to Tom, I'm curious to hear, what are you seeing across the Forecastr customers around the early stage financing?
Yeah, no, this is a great chart. This is really interesting. And being a former Carta team member, I have to put my plug in for Carta Insights. I don't know if you follow Peter Walker on LinkedIn, but Carta takes the aggregate anonymized data set of the 50,000 or so venture-backed companies and publishes information on this very information in terms of how much do people raise, what's the valuation range, and what's not always the dilution information. But I think what's important to realize here is the valuations are very different based on geography. Like the Silicon Valley valuations are different than the New York City valuations, are different from the Midwest valuations and the Texas valuations. I think a lot of the Y Combinator projects that just graduated are trying to raise at a 20 million post, which is just insane if you're raising in the Midwest in like Kentucky or Tennessee or Minneapolis. But then that's the YC premium, and that's the super high end of the market. But in terms of looking at, the pre-seed and seed information where you're raising, $1 million, $2 million on something between like a 6 million post and a 10 million post is probably doable for most people. In terms of Austin, Texas, great question, Timu. I don't have that data on hand right now, but I think if you went to the Carta Insights page, they publish this kind of information and you could see it broken down by geography. And I think they actually do Texas, and they break it down into Austin too, since Austin is such a tech hub.
You know, and I appreciate you, Tom, for sharing more around the location premium because I think it's very real and it's always the caveat whenever presenting valuation data and rounds data because the SF is going to be its own ecosystem and I would say New York as well, whereas the rest of the country is going to look quite differently. So when we're looking at this, we're trying to exclude the outliers from all the reporting, but as you mentioned, also Carta Insights. I would also suggest the CB Insights quarterly report. That's another good publication that comes up once a quarter. That is great for founders to read. There's quite a number of resources in this particular area. So once you figure out how much you're raising, you have your financial model, you have clear understanding of how you're deploying the capital. Then the question comes, okay, so how do you find the right investors? How do you get in touch with the relevant individuals? And I would say this thing, having been on the other side on the investing, there's an absolutely ridiculous amount of founders who are reaching out to VCs that could never invest in that particular opportunity. So just by being present at this webinar and like grasping some of these like core fundamental concepts, you're already setting yourself up for success. The very beginning of work that I would do would be around the thesis fit. When VCs raise capital for their funds, they're effectively making a promise to the people that they're raising those funds from that they're going to be deploying that capital in a very specific strategy. And that strategy may be more generalist and more specific. It's a spectrum. However, it's never anything and everything under the sun. So when you're doing research on the right investors, understanding if they're actually deploying in your industry, if they're deploying in your geography, if they're deploying in your business model at your stage, is fundamental for you to create the minimum a short list of people who have the ability to invest. Meaning an early stage fund that does pre-seed and seed will not invest in a Series B company, and a growth stage fund who's expecting at least 5 million ARR will not invest in a pre-product idea stage business. And you'd be surprised by how many founders don't even bother to do that basic level of research. Now, on the second front is the value add. Assuming you have this list of individuals that can invest in your company, doesn't mean that they should invest in your company. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of capital out there that is up for grabs. It is your duty to make business partnerships with people you genuinely care about and care about you, and that you see a long-term potential to work together. And especially when you're looking at VC partnerships, and ideally someone coming to lead you around, this is more important than ever before. Because people without expertise, without an investor network, without a potential customer network, are simply going to give you the capital and then say, great. And that's at the good side. The bad side, they're not going to stop there. They're actually going to start giving advice. They're going to sit on your board and they're going to make decisions with you or on your behalf. And what you don't want in those people are individuals who actually don't understand the business that they're joining in. And don't just assume that because someone is investing in a particular industry, that they're an expert in that industry. And there's plenty of examples to go around. So how do you get into this like value add understanding? It's really about proper amount of research, which is what we always suggest. You should be spending about 70% of your time preparing for the raise and 30% of the time actually doing the raise. Because once the moment you say, I'm in market, I'm raising capital, there's a clock that starts ticking, and you want to make sure the fund you've prepared is qualified enough to be able to get you there. So sure, investor databases, form websites, and fundraising newsletters are great. We're going to show you how we can run all of that through Flowlie natively. And also relationship-based research, meaning if you're part of a co-founder community or founder community, reaching out to them. If you've been part of accelerators, reaching out to people in your accelerator network, going to network events, etc. Really, really important ways to get in touch with the right individuals. Tom, any thoughts on how to get better insights on how people are?
I think this is a great arguments here about how not all money is the same, and but everything can be value add at different levels in the process. Like when your first check writers that are the friends, family, and fools, you might be willing to take $25,000 from a dentist that just wants to think of themselves as a tech investor because it helps you get to the next level of fundraising, which might be some more sophisticated capital funds that do specifically seed or Series A investing. But you really want to understand, like, okay, why am I taking money from this person? Are they going to open any doors for me? Or is taking this check that doesn't have any connections just getting me enough runway to get to the next stage? So that's a great point. It's like easy to go out to the market and think, oh, I'm just going to go raise. But the more research that you put into it and the more structured a process that you can run, the more you'll be able to drive results that help you get to the next level.
100%. Really appreciate your thoughts on this, Tom. So getting intros and outreach priority, which is how do you actually start getting in touch with those individuals the moment you've identified, who they are. And again, we're going to jump in shortly into Flowlie and answer any questions you may have on that. Ideally, you would get into all those investors via some form of a warm intro path. You would try to figure out a mutual connection between you and that target investor and see if they're willing to make that intro on your behalf, if they're willing to use some of their social capital to be able to bridge that introduction. Now, not all warm intros are the same. So I think it's really important to make that distinction. Introductions from your existing investors are going to be really, really strong because they have a very clear vested interest into making an introduction, and they've already made a commitment of capital towards the organization. Second strongest will be introductions from portfolio founders. So if you are connected with people who've raised capital from the people you're trying to get in touch to, second best to an existing investor, especially because they have such a strong relationship, they trust that person enough that they've invested in their company. So any referral from them is going to count significantly stronger. Now, intros from any other connectors, good, just not as good as the one mentioned prior, still better than cold outreach. Cold outreach, in my opinion, should be used primarily as a plan B if you're not able to get an intro into that particular organization. Shoot your shot with a very customized and personalized message. There's nothing wrong with it. Just know that the conversion rate to a call will be significantly lower. And then last but not least is an investor who could have invested but end up passing on you should never be asked to make introductions on your behalf because you're effectively setting up yourself for failure by asking someone who already made the judgment you're not worthy of their money to then shop your deal around with other investors. And it never, never, never works to your advantage. So words of caution on that end. Now, if you do end up doing cold email, to do it thoughtfully, would strongly suggest keeping it very brief, concise, but also incredibly clear. Meaning you may be pitching the most complex, revolutionary technology that ever existed. If you're not able to explain to a person over the course of 2 sentences what it is actually that you're doing without all this like great fluff about what it could be, what is it that you're actually doing, you've already started a disadvantage because people who don't understand are not able to actually make a decision. So I would start with a personalized hook. I would do a 1 or maybe a 2-liner on the company in the most layman term possible. This is not your time to, sell. It's your time to get understanding. I would follow up with some proof, and this is your time to sell. I would probably put like 2 to 3 bullet points around your traction, around what's the inflection point that you're currently experiencing. I would ask for a meeting and give a few details on the round that I'm raising, and then I would follow up. I wouldn't keep this email longer than a 20-second read because that's probably the amount of time people will be spending on reading that email. And your goal is to get a meeting. Your goal is to be exciting enough to get a meeting, not to get an investment. Nobody got an investment from a first email. That first meeting is also not the opportunity to get an investment. It's to get a second meeting and going deeper in due diligence. So understand how the process works and optimize for that next step, knowing that realistically, in order to get an investment, there are probably going to be 2 to 3 meetings and some back and forth over email with questions. Very few people, show up to a coffee shop, shake a hand, and 20 minutes later, leave with money. And if you've heard of these stories, they're stories for a reason. They're the exception that, confirm the rule. And everybody would want to be there, but we just have to be realistic and understand where we're at. So with this insight, the most important thing, and Tom mentioned it, it's running a process, right? Before you start, do a lot of research, create a white top of funnel that's highly qualified, prepare all your fundraising materials, have your financial model ready, have your data room ready, know the answers to your most common questions. During the process, you optimize for warm introductions. You try to get as many of those warm introductions in a calendar dense situation. So what we mean by that is you want to get ideally all these intros and all the meetings to happen in a very short period of time, rather than have the same number of meetings happen over the course of 8 to 9 weeks. It's much easier to be in control of your fundraising process if you have most of your meetings in a shorter period of time and are moving people forward sequentially. You send regular updates, you create moments of traction. What I mean by that is you're trying to figure out any exciting news that are happening with your company right now that you can broadcast to investors. And that's a way to predictably raise capital. Doesn't mean you'll always raise capital. It means you will have a very clear understanding of how much input goes in to get output out. And if your conversion rates are not great and you say I have to start with 50 investors to only get a check-in, that's still knowledge that you now have, meaning if you want to get 10 checks, you're going to need 500 investors. So you just have to work 10 times more what you've just done. But if you don't follow any form of process, there's no way for you to actually analyze if you're doing the right thing or not. And if I were to tell you to do sales without a sales process or to hire without a hire process, you'd probably look at me like I'm crazy. But for whatever reason, when it comes to fundraising and we say just throw spaghetti at the wall, reach out to 5 people and see what it works, that's for whatever reason expected practice. Not for you because you're at this webinar. And overall, remember it's a relationship game, and building those relationships before you need money overall is the most important. So let's talk a little bit about Flowlie and what we do and how we've built a solution to effectively help you navigate the fundraising process much more effectively. Really important, should I reorder the points in our relationship first? To some regards, because a lot of people are not able to build, relationships necessarily before they start engaging in any form of fundraising work. And whenever you're engaging in building relationships for fundraising, I would strongly suggest you build relationship with the people who matter most, right? The people you've done research with, the people you've shortlisted, the people in your region that can deploy capital in that particular opportunity, because no founder would ever be served by saying, I want to meet all VCs, right? Each founder will want to meet VCs in their particular direction. And in order to do that, you'll need to go through the research process that we were mentioning earlier. So with that being said, quick things on Flowlie. We are not a marketplace and we are not a broker, meaning you don't go to Flowlie to be quote unquote match with investors and put in front of them. Quite frankly, you do not want that. And anyone who's trying to sell you, hey, I can get you in front of 5 people if you pay me some money, probably with some very, very, very few exceptions, not worth your time, energy, or money. So with that in mind, what we did is build a platform to help you go through the process of fundraising more effectively, from identifying the right investors, to identifying the right intros, to actually activating those intros, to then going and managing your process, getting an understanding of the meetings you have, as well as getting meeting insights and analysis from the conversations you're having. So in order to set up, it's fairly easy. You just go to flowlie.com, you create an account, you check your email if you're using email and password and not Google, and then you're in. In preparation for getting into Flowlie, or the moment you're into Flowlie, just to have it available, if you were to go to LinkedIn and get a copy of your first degree connections, you're going to find it very useful to be able to import that in Flowlie soon after. The process to get it's quite easy. You just log in into LinkedIn, go to settings and privacy, you download the copy of your data, and remember, you will have this presentation afterwards as well. So at this point, you have an account on Flowlie, and ideally, you already grabbed a copy of your data from LinkedIn. So what would you do? And actually, I may want to go in the platform itself for this part rather than go through the slides. So you just give me 1 second to go here and reshare my screen. We are going to go into the actual Flowlie. So, as I was mentioning earlier, you're at this point, you're in, and where I would start is at the one pager. And the reason behind it is because you'd want to give Flowlie some information about you. And I can zoom in a little bit more. It's a very large screen. Tom, is the zoom level okay?
I'm just you can make it a little bit bigger.
All right.
This is my first time seeing a demo, so I'm excited too.
Okay, awesome. Super. So let's do it at this level. So the first part where you would start is the one pager. The more information you give Flowlie in the one pager, the better the analysis, the automated analysis would be in terms of investor research. Take this as a menu. Don't take this as an obligation, meaning don't feel obliged to fill out every single field in this. But note that your industries, your headquarters, business model, all the information around your product, what type of product you're building, is it consumable, is it software, where are you at, what's the revenue type, etc., will be brought into this analysis. And the moment you have that level is you would go to investor research. And seeing a question in the chat, how well is the data protected in Flowlie, GDPR level, PPPI? We are going currently through SOC 2 compliance. So, following the best standards of privacy and security, hosting everything on a cloud, on AWS securely. We do not host any personal identifiable information that is, sensitive. So we have information primarily around the firmographics of your company. So with that being said, you then go to investor research. And investor research is your first plane of where are you going to find the right investors. You have two ways to do it. You're either doing it yourself using our database of transactions, and we've mapped a lot of transactions across North America and Europe, almost everything that's happened over the last 3 years, and use that to infer information about investors and what they're actually deploying in. You can go ahead and click as many of the filters as you want and go into this. Or you can leverage our AI and click this purple button right here, find the best investors for me. And what it will do, it will automatically start identifying all the right individuals or the right firms that, given our transaction data, are most likely to invest in a company like yours. And we call that our feed scoring model. And that feed scoring effectively gives you a list of our database sorted by this propensity to invest. Meaning, if you were to have spent a lot of time doing your due diligence, now a lot of that has been done for you. So let's go into one of these profiles to understand a little bit more about what that means. We're giving you information about the stages they're deploying capital in, the industries that they've deployed in, the business model, product categories, check size, geographies, etc. And based on all of these things, we are computing the feed score, again, the weighted analytics of what they're actually deploying capital in or not. Now, I will go back for just 1 second to search and look at firms rather than individuals, because I want to show you at a firm level something that's really important for you, which is, you may say a firm is a great fit for me. Awesome. You got directionally towards a firm. But what Flowlie allows you to do is go to an investor tab under the firm and actually understand what is the right investor at that firm for me to reach out to. Now, for a very small firm, let's say it's someone with a firm of like 2 to 3 people, this may not necessarily be very relevant because they're going to invest as a group in most things. But when you're looking at any firm that's above 5, 6, 7 people, and especially at large firms of 20, 30 people, they're partners that focus on very specific industries or very specific business models, and Flowlie will be able to surface that very easily for you in one module. You can also take a look at the portfolio of that company. And you may say, Vlad, why would I want to do this in Flowlie? Because I can see their portfolio on their website. Sure. However, what we've done is we've actually analyzed that portfolio, understand what those companies actually do, and then map their industries, their products, their business models, and calculate the similarity score between you and the end investor, allowing you to effectively say, have they potentially invested in similar or competitive companies? And this is both a way for you to say, maybe it's a competitor in their portfolio, or a way for you to say, they've deployed capital in similar companies, but nothing exactly like me, therefore it's a great fit. I'm seeing another question. Did your database covers MENA regions? Yes, we currently do cover Cross world, I would say probably our weakest data set would be Asia. But outside of that, North America, Europe, MENA, and LATAM, really good coverage of firms and individual investors. We're also covering VCs, CVCs, which is corporate venture firms, family offices, a very good database of family offices, as well as syndicators. We don't have great data yet on individual angels, but that's something we're working on right now. From there, you're going to find yourself creating target lists. And target lists are effectively short lists of investors for a particular list. Let's say you're going to New York and you want to create a short list of all the investors in New York that you want to reach out to. And this is where you start seeing that there is a mix between the data that we are able to give you of all these investors and also some of your network data. So I want to spend a second to explore this part of the network analysis because it's a really important part of fundraising. I now know who I want to reach out to, but as we were mentioning in the presentation, who can introduce me to those people? So the answer to that question is one simple purple button that does a lot of really sophisticated stuff in the background, which is find intros. So this button, once deployed, it will send our background intro path discovery agent to swarm your network and the network of your co-founders to identify potential intro paths between you and all the people you're targeting. And you can do it at the target list level. If you want to reach out to multiple people, you can find interest to one individual or to a firm. So at the end of it, you're going to have a dashboard like this, where in this particular target list, you have an 88% intro path coverage and 3 no intro investors, meaning as you're going to market with this particular list, let's say, you can find intros to about 88% of the people, and there's 3 investors that you were not able to find any intros to. Again, gives you relationship intelligence before you jump in and start working on the fundraising. Are we well covered or not? Do we need to build more relationships or not? So how do we do this? Let's do 2 things. Number 1 is your team members. You can add on the pro level up to 5 team members. You can connect your LinkedIn and you can create your Google account. This will give us access in addition to the information I was asking you earlier to pull from LinkedIn, which is the network analysis. You'd click on this import button and you would drop that CSV here earlier that I was mentioning to be able to request that archive from LinkedIn. That will effectively give Flowlie a sense of who are the people in your network, like who are your first degree connections. And I know the fact that you have someone on LinkedIn you've emailed someone once doesn't necessarily mean you know them really well. And that's really the goal of this second part, which is here in all connections, you will find all the relationships of your co-founders and yourself. And you'll also see something that we call network value, meaning how valuable are they towards your particular raise? Meaning how well connected are they, not in general, not how many investors they know, but how many great investors for you they know and how well do they know them. So we do all that computation in the background and then serve you at the top the people who have the highest network value for you. And then from here, all you have to do is tell Flowlie, do you know those people really well or you don't? But the reason why we do this after we've served that network value is because we want to make sure we give you the top 20, 30, 40, 50 people that you should spend time activating. Can you filter on fund sizes, stages they invest, and check sizes? Yes to all the above. On fund sizes, actually no. So stages they invest, 100% check size, yes. Fund sizes, no. We do not have that filter yet in Flowlie, but great feedback. We might add it. So with that, you will then be able to say, probably the most important person I need to activate here is Elena. So I'm going to go to Elena. I'm going to look at her intro paths and I'm going to see all the 38 intro paths that she has uncovered. And we're also going to see the types of intros. We've seen that she's an LP in someone's fund. We said she's a current portfolio founder in someone's portfolio, or just a connected founder altogether. What that allows you to do, as I was mentioning earlier, around not all intros are made the same. Our quantification of that is called path impact, meaning our effectively scoring of how good that intro path is for you to be able to get a particular intro. So the moment you identified who you want to reach out to for a network analysis module, you've identified who are the most important people in your network to activate through our network analysis module. The moment you go to actually activate them, you're able to ask them not for every intro they can make, but really for the most important intros. In this case, Vikas, Daisy, and Steven. And if you select those three and click request intros right here, we've effectively pre-drafted a message that can go to Elena, asking her to make those introductions to the investors that Flowlie suggested they're the highest fit for you. So again, condensating that whole process of identification and managing all of this under one platform, making it very, very simple for you to send this message directly through LinkedIn, through the Flowlie platform, because we have an API integration into it, and you never have to go and juggle all these other platforms all together. So at this point, you've ideally created great target lists. You've identified people in your network. You've started activating people in this way. What follows next is really the investor pipeline, right? And that's the place where once you start booking meetings with people, you can create your own stages. You can make this, as complex or as simple as you want. You start adding investors to the pipeline. As you start speaking with them, you set priorities for them. You update their status. You select their source, priority, commitment amount. If they end up passing, you can select why they passed, and you have all that information in one place. You can shortlist them for your next round, etc. So think of this becoming the hub of you being able to track when was the last meeting, who have I spoken with, who needs a follow-up, etc. And the last and most exciting part that we've been building recently is the meeting analysis. So as I mentioned, you can connect your Google, and that includes your Google Calendar. By connecting your Google Calendar, we'll be able to automatically detect all your investor meetings. So we will not import into Flowlie any of your personal meetings or any of your work meetings or sales calls, etc. But the moment we identify a meeting on your calendar that is an investor, we'll be able to import that into Flowlie. And that means that your CRM gets up to date automatically just by you having meetings with investors. All of that will be tracked in Flowlie without you actually having to import or manually input any of this information. Now, if you are using any form of transcriber, think of Author, Fathom, Granola, etc., all you have to do is just drop the transcript into Flowlie. Let me just go right here. So we'll just drop the transcript into Flowlie, and we fine-tune an LLM to pick up things like investment thesis insights, sentiment analysis, points of interest, and points of concern from that particular meeting. And again, storing all of that information in Flowlie for you to be easily able to retrieve it whenever you have a future meeting with that particular fund to see, okay, how did the last meeting go? What did we discuss? What were the tasks that we were supposed to follow through? Did we do it or not? And prepare for your next meeting. So I'm going to go back to Insight Partners into meetings to show you how that looks like at the firm level. Again, this gives you an insight of how many meetings we had with them. Do we have an upcoming meeting scheduled or not? What was the highest rank in the firm that we met? How does Flowlie quantify the momentum we have with them? And again, that's based on data from hundreds and hundreds of founders that have been raising with Flowlie. Is this, are they going in the right direction or not? Who have we met? What are all the remaining tasks that we have with a particular firm, etc. So Flowlie can become your one place to manage all of this information all under one place. And not to mention the ability to take notes, see all your intro paths towards a firm, be able to see recent news about that company, and much, much more that allows you to do that research and manage your process all in one place. So the last thing that I'll mention is the AI agent, because we did discuss about it, and that Tom was also discussing about how they're looking to integrate this into Forecastr. So what we've done was effectively give this agent the ability to use Flowlie on your behalf. So if you followed along and you're like, Vlad, that's a lot of buttons to click, cool, I want to just be able to ask someone to do this for me, you'll find that our AI agent could help you with that. So you can ask it things like, I am looking for investors who do pre-seed B2B, let's say ad tech, primarily VCs. And what that will do, it will figure out what part of Flowlie and what part of the tooling that we have built in Flowlie he can use in order to deliver this request. It will most likely pick our investor research. So you'll actually go into our database, perform those queries on your behalf, and then come up with not only all the information, but also context on those investors and next steps. So let's create a target list with the top 10 investors in this search and call it Forecastr demo. Again, would you be able to just create a target list directly by doing this search? Yes, but if you prefer to just type and interact with an LLM in this way, you can. As you can see, it actually creates a target list. If we click on it, we go into that list, we will see the investor ID was picked. It even built a description for us. And again, because we ran network analysis to some of these individuals, we already have some of this data in. But again, everything that I just showed you already can be done directly through the agent. So let's say, can we find intros to those investors? And at this point, it will leverage our intro path discovery agent module. It will ask for confirmation before we begin. So it will say, I'm going to search the network of these 3 individuals. Do you want to run it? It's going to cost 30 credits. We do have in Flowlie a system of credits. It renews every month, and that's just to prevent abuse of our AI features. But there's plenty to run around. You'll click run, and that will dispatch those agents in the background and uncover intros for you that will then be displayed in their particular level. So this is Flowlie in a nutshell, as well as fundraising 101-ish.